Alexis Nunes alongside Mark Butcher. It's all said and done now, Butch. The Ashes and the cricket summer here in England is over. And what a relief, I guess we can say, for some England fans. But we'll get to that in a bit. Let's just talk about some of the top moments from the Ashes. And one of the contests that everyone loved was just Stuart Broad bowling, not just to left-handers, but to David Warner, and how he constantly was like, here's my pocket, just hop right in there. So let's start off with Stuart Broad there, because he was absolutely on a next level. What was just clicking so well for him overall, and especially up against left-handers?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, he's bowling perhaps better than he's ever done in his career.
Age ain't nothing but a number.
Absolutely. He's become the fourth guy, or one of the few guys to be 20 plus wickets in an Ashes series for the fourth time. And I thought he bowled quickly. He bowled full of length. His line was immaculate. He was aggressive without sort of overdoing the short ball. It was vintage Stuart Broad, really. And of course, that battle between himself and David Warner was a highlight, simply because, I suppose, from the crowd's point of view, they didn't want to see David Warner score any runs over here, and that's the way it panned out. And from England's point of view, it was really, really important that he didn't allow him to get his teeth into the series, because of how dangerous he can be, how quickly he can score. So, you know, Stuart's angle from around the wicket and the consistency with which he was able to take the ball away from Warner, sometimes run the odd one back in, but because he had him pinned to the crease, and you know, perhaps a little error from Warner in the beginning in the first Test match at Edgbaston, where he should have reviewed it, would have saved him. But from there on in, he didn't know whether to leave it. He didn't know where his off stump was. He didn't know whether it was going over the top. I think he got out 2 or 3 times when he was trying to leave the ball. Stuart absolutely had him on toast. And we saw, you know, David moving around. He started off with a sort of traditional left-hander's guard to right armour around the wicket, which is to get over onto middle, maybe even middle and off, just so you get your head in line with where the ball's coming from. And by the end, I think he was back on to middle and leg, maybe even leg stump, trying to open up the offside for himself, trying to get the cut shot away, which is a recipe for disaster, really. The angles are all wrong. So that just shows you how much that Stuart Broad had got into his head. And
so it's just mainly a mental thing from them, because it's funny, because all of the commentators kept saying, once Stuart Broad again going up against David Warner, they just said, you know what, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, round the wickets again. And I kept thinking, no way is he going to fall for this again. Surely a man of David Warner's caliber will eventually find a way to break through, but just didn't.
Yeah, and I think, you know, possibly the one thing that he didn't try really was to try and get much closer to Stuart, just so that he knew that the ball would be passing over the top of the stumps in order to let it go. You know, if you take your guard 10 inches, a foot or something outside of the crease, Stuart then has to adjust his length back a little bit. David Warner shouldn't have been bothered about sort of the short ball from Stuart Broad, even though it's sharp, but it's still, you know, not up there with somebody like Jofra Archer. And so then at least you could let the ball go on length and let it go, knowing that it's going to go over your stumps. The problem for Davey was he didn't know whether the ball was hitting off stump, whether it was wide of off stump, whether it was going to clip the top of off, which he did on a couple of occasions. He just absolutely had him on toast. And, you know, it was one of those battles that it happens very rarely, actually, where a fast bowler gets the number of an opposing player, especially a high-class opposing player, to the extent where he literally doesn't make a score. Because generally speaking, over the course of a 5 Test match series, the batsman will have his day. Not this time.
Not this time at all, which is definitely surprising. And if you're David Warner now, what are you thinking going on? Because again, as we were saying, this is David Warner. It was kind of a bit of a shock to see him just consistently not be able to find a solution to any of the problems he was facing.
Yeah, you know, I mean, these things can happen. That's why 5 Test match series is the sort of the best test of players on either side, batsmen, bowlers, captains, the whole thing. Because you can be exposed. You know, you come up against the same opposition time after time after time, and if they get you down, you know, the only thing that's saving you quite often is being dropped from the team. You know, that's
you can refresh again.
And maybe, you know, maybe if there'd been a 6 Test match, he wouldn't have found himself on the team sheet. But I think, thankfully for everybody, 5 Test matches were enough.
Yes, it was a long series indeed, but we enjoyed every moment of it. And one of the reasons why is definitely that battle between Stuart Broad and David Warner.